So today we have one of the most powerful and famous readings of the Old Testament. This comes to us from the Book of Kings as we've been following along this week, and we're looking again at the story of Elijah. This is his most famous story, and there is a whole power that goes with this. But here is the story of Elijah and his competition with the prophets of Baal. And, some people pronounce that idol Baal, but the way I've seen it spelled, I think it's best Baal, so that's the way I pronounce it. Anyway, this happened on Mount Carmel. We're going to talk about the whole story, give you a little background, and we're going to have an understanding of this. I may read parts of this, but it's a really long reading, so I don't know if I even have the time to do that. But here we go. What you have is the prophets of Baal, and they are worshiping Baal, and on Mount Carmel. And then you have, of course, Elijah. Well, this is a competition to discover who is the true God. Because what's happened is, obviously, this is in Israel, and you've got the corrupt king Ahab, and you've got the evil queen, and obviously corrupt Jezebel. But Jezebel is pagan. She's a Gentile, Goyim, these are all the names they use. She is a Philistine. So she worships the Philistine gods, and one of them, of course, is Baal. And keep that in mind. This is the thing that came up. We were talking about this earlier in the week. Who is the god they're going to worship most? If the Jews decide to practice idolatry, who is the god they are going to worship most? They're going to worship most the god of fertility. Why? In our society today, when we think the god of fertility, we're thinking the god who ensures children, and lots of them. But in this society, that could be there. But most importantly, this society brings us the god of fertility, which helps make sure your land is fertile, your crops are fertile, and you prosper. So it's all about prosperity. And now, you have to understand another part of this. The queen is a Philistine, and she's worshiping Baal. In a sense, even though she is the most evil woman in the Old Testament, she's not doing anything wrong there because she, in fact, is a Philistine. So her worshiping her own god is not something that God rejects, because God isn't yet working with the people outside the outside of Israel. He will do that after the death and resurrection of Jesus. So what we have there is she's not doing necessarily anything wrong. Everything else she does is wrong, pretty much a lot of it. But she's not doing anything wrong in worshiping Baal because she's a Philistine. It's Ahab who's doing things wrong. It's Ahab who's allowing her to do evil. It's Ahab who married her in the first place, which he wasn't allowed to do because he wasn't allowed to mix Judaism, which at the time would be the faith of Israel, with the pagan faith. But they did this for political expediency. Remember, Ahab is a king. Remember last year we looked at Saul becoming king, and we looked at how the Lord said you don't want to have a king. When you have a king, you have everything that goes with it, and you don't want that. People still wanted a king. Now, of course, we're actually beyond Saul. We're beyond David. We're in the time of Ahab. We've got Jezebel there. We've got all this going on. We've got this tremendous difficulty, and you've got this evil queen. And now there is a competition as Elijah is trying to get the people to understand they should not be worshiping Baal. Even though the queen is a Philistine, the people are Israelites, and they have a mandate, a command, not to worship the god of the queen. So what happens is this big competition. Essentially, it's a competition. It's a contest on Mount Carmel between the 450 prophets of Baal and the one prophet of Yahweh. And so what happens is Elijah calls on the prophets of Baal to pray to their God to send down fire on this young bull. There were two young bulls, one for him and one for the prophets of Baal, fire and to consume this young bull. And, it's a sacrifice. And they pray, and they're praying all morning, and Elijah's mocking them. Oh, maybe he's sleeping. Maybe he doesn't hear you, and just mocking them and mocking them and mocking them. And then Elijah's turn to pray to his God to consume this sacrifice. And remember, the sacrifice, even though there were two bulls there, one of them is for Baal, which is still there because nothing happens, and the other one is for Yahweh. So then what Elijah does is he has water poured over both sacrifices because it's like a greater challenge. If he's going to send fire, it's going to be harder to make a sacrifice here because they're all wet, the bulls. And he prays to Yahweh, and great fire, this is called Theophany, comes down and consumes both bulls. And everyone can see the one true God is the God of Israel. Well, at that point, Elijah demands the execution of the 450 prophets. Because remember, it's not just this is their job and they're prophets and they happen to be prophets of Baal. These are people practicing idolatry in God's country. Forbidden, absolutely forbidden. It's the number one sin against God. And to purify Israel, he calls for all of them to be executed. So this is the whole story here, and it's a powerful story that is illustrating, number one, that we are to worship one God. Don't be looking at any other God, and it's not about God will come after you. It's that you have to realize none of the other gods exist. Now, we don't really have a problem with that today. No one is out here worshiping Baal. There are a few people, literally a few people who may be worshiping Astarte or something like that. Some people get into that stuff. But not a huge majority. It's, extreme minority. There are even some Zoroastrians, which is the faith of the three magi. They're around. But again, these are extreme minorities. This was a large group of the Israelites who were worshiping Baal. So, in our day today, we don't have that issue. So we don't have the issue of people worshiping Baal. But actually, we do. How many people go to mediums? How many people practice or use tarot cards, or go to someone who will use tarot cards? How many people do you know practice different forms of what we would call the occult? And this is a sin as well. It's a grave sin. It's a very dangerous sin. I don't get into these priests who are always preaching exorcism, but one of the ways to get yourself in trouble with the devil is to practice that kind of occult. Because what are you doing? You're trusting an unknown force, even a demonic force. I'll talk about that in a second, when you should be trusting the Lord. And that's the things, because you're worried about your future, you go to a medium. No, you bring your worries to the Lord. Now, I lived with an exorcist for 2 years, and you get me near a Ouija board and I will just say, get that away from me. Not that I'm afraid of it. It's like I want nothing to do with it. And there was a case where that happened. And what I went back to the exorcist who I lived with. I was living with him, so obviously I saw him, and I said, am I taking this Ouija board thing too serious? He says, no. He says, no, people will tell you that it is a portal to the demonic. He says, no, there's no portal there. Portal is another word for door. He says, there's no door there. That's direct contact. No, stay away from it. So that's the reality we're looking at when we understand. Anytime you're dealing with the occult, you're dealing with trouble. And what is the occult? It is trusting another force besides God. Any problem I've really had with any kind of spiritual issue has been with tarot cards. Don't go near tarot cards. Keep away from them. I guess the proper pronunciation is tarot, whatever. Get away from them. Don't go near them. I'm not talking about playing cards, which somehow have a connection in design to those. So I'm not talking about that. That's simple. Play with playing cards all you want. I'm talking about tarot cards because, again, what is it? It is trusting in another force, even a spiritual force. You want to call it a demonic force, whatever. I don't know. Call it what you want, instead of trusting the Lord. And that's why the Lord says don't. That's a sin. And if you've done that, go to confession. That breaks the bond of that sin. That's what confession is all about, breaking the bond of sin. So these are some pretty powerful things, all based in this story. It's a powerful story, and it's a great opportunity to go and read it for yourself today or when you hear it at Mass. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. I want to call your attention to Catholic TV, which offers great faith-filled, family-friendly programming 24 hours a day. You can find your cable channel at www.getcatholictv.com, and you can watch online on the free apps or check out the YouTube channel. Daily Mass, Rosaries, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and the Our Lady of Perpetual Help Novena are all available online and on demand. Check out CatholicTV.com. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and yesterday we were looking at the first part of the 25th paragraph in the Pope's latest encyclical, and here we are. Still, there's so much in this encyclical, and here we are still in this 25th paragraph, and we're going to look at another line in here in which he says that he's talking about, as we talked yesterday, time is greater than space, and in that what matters most is not so much the space of occupying power, but the processes that mature over time. And that's what you want to see, the processes that enable maturity. So that's the time is greater than space. Allow time to happen. And we understand that. And St. Augustine used to teach that. We understand that over time, the words of Jesus deepen for us that maybe you wouldn't be able to understand them in the 16th century the way you understand them now. And so they deepen for us. They these truths come to a deeper reality. It's like one thing I preached over the weekend when we're talking about the Holy Trinity. That was, a week ago, but we were talking about the Holy Trinity, which I always bring out, and I brought it out on the program. We can talk about how our understanding of the Son changed over the millennia. Back in the time of Socrates and Plato, it was believed that gods carried the Son on a chariot up across the sky. And then over time, we discovered that the Son was actually more than that. And then we have to realize that the Sun is this powerful star in the sky, and it was believed that the Sun revolved around the Earth, but it's the other way around and everything else. But the Sun never changed. The sun was always the same. Our understanding of the sun changed. And that's the principle he's talking about, where he says that time is greater than space. Standing there and saying, I'm the one that has the knowledge, and I can tell you that I will show you that the sun is powerful as it revolves around us, doesn't make, wow, this guy appears powerful. But what he's saying is, no, that's not good. It's over time our understanding matures, and then we all come together and say, wow, this is magnificent, that this is greater than even we imagined, that the sun is there. But our planet is going around the sun, and so are 8 other planets. Or 8.5, because some people consider Pluto a planet, some people don't, whatever. But you know what I mean. Didn't they say that there's now a Planet X someplace? Remember when I was a kid, they used to talk about Planet X, and it was just part of science fiction cartoons. There wasn't any Planet X. And now, of course, they're talking about a Planet X. Well, that's another story. So that's what he's saying. So in this way, the truth of the gospel is not imposed from above. Do not listen to these clowns who tell you have to believe what was preached in the 16th century. Not going to mention their names, not going to mention anything else, but don't listen. When they start telling you have to believe that the sun revolves around the earth, you can say, look, you're a clown, go away. No, because truth does not get imposed from above, but grows over time within the concrete interweaving of lives. We all start to discover this truth, and it says interweaving of lives, communities, and cultures. We all start discovering this truth, and in that discovery, we realize powerful things that help us to grow closer to unity and to the God who created us. Those are my words. Explain that. So this is not a truth that fears diversity, but instead welcomes and guides it. It does not eliminate conflicts, but transforms them, reuniting that which history tends to scatter. This concept can also be illustrated by the image of a multifaceted polyhedron in which the one truth of the gospel is reflected from different angles. Someone said that the Pope used to be a math teacher, and they say, well, there he goes. He gives us this explanation in math, and some of us are going, what? But anyway, what he's saying is this truth is understood over time, and it has the cultures look at the same truth in different ways, and together they come up with this more deeper and profound understanding of truth. Now, one of my favorite examples of this, I was listening overnight, this was last week, to Walter Sterling on WABC. He does the overnight, the other side of midnight. And it took me a while to get used to him. I'm starting to listen to him more because I like Lionel, who preceded him, but Lionel's available on weekends. But anyway, I'm starting to warm up to him. Well, anyway, he was talking. There was a caller who called in and talked about how school is really about leading people into conforming their behavior in order to work well. And he didn't like school. Neither did I. And that's what he's saying. Now, whether you believe that or not, that's a different story. But it brought up to me this idea, and it was, I like to describe, and I may have described it to you before, where bungee jumping comes from. It comes from an ancient African tribe, understanding that boys between the ages of 12 and 18 become, because of the changes in their body, they can become very aggressive. And so as a way to deal with this, they have those ways of, what do they call them? Those rites of passage in some of these tribes. And one of them was that the boys would be challenged to jump off a cliff with vines attached to their feet. And the one who comes closest without having the disaster happen is the one who becomes the greatest of whatever they make them. And that's where bungee jumping came from. Someone happened to see this in National Geographic and said, hey, we could do something like that here. That's where it came from. And I've always said that if we had people from that tribe, some of the leaders of the tribe, come here to the United States and ask, well, what do you do with boys between that age of 12 and 18? And we say, well, we put them in a classroom for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day, and we have them sit down and we talk to them and we have them, study. And he would say, what, are you crazy? That's going to lead boys to get involved in gangs and get involved in violence and say, oh, son of a gun, that does kind of happen. I wonder why. Well, there you go. That's a form of wisdom that comes from two different backgrounds. We have one that's forming a mind, but another one that's bringing up this whole different concept using the biology to deepen the role. And you put those two together, they are two facets of the same truth, and they help people to understand both facets, and that's where you get the polyhedron. And so you could take that wisdom from this tribe, and you could take what we already do in school and kind of mix them and make sure you do have some kind of activity and maybe challenge or something that brings out that reality that during that age, boys and probably girls need a lot more than just sitting in a classroom and reading books, which are important. Nothing wrong with that, but you also need something else. And, encourage sports, and not just the whole sports idea, but encourage different forms of sports, skiing and, whatever. But out west, out in the Midwest and out in the West, you'll find teenagers in that age involved in high school rodeo, which includes bull riding, by the way. Yes. Oh, yeah. They I suppose these people in the tribes there would say, wow, at least they do the bull riding out west. Not that I'm encouraging anyone to be riding bulls. I've worked with bull riders. It's a very dangerous sport. Toughest sport on dirt. We're going to be back on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We're here every single Monday through Friday. We'll be right back right after this. Are you feeling overwhelmed, burdened by the challenges of life? Take a moment to find solace in the words of 1 Peter 5.
Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time.
In times of trial, remember the power of humility. Trust in God's timing, for he will lift you up when the time is right.
Cast all your anxiety upon him, because he cares for you.
Release your worries and anxieties unto the Lord, for he cares for you deeply. Find comfort in his loving embrace.
And the God of all grace, who called you to his eternal glory in Christ, after you have suffered a little while, shall himself perfect, establish, and strengthen you.
These are just a few verses from 1 Peter 5, offering you hope, encouragement, and guidance. Tune into the Bible, the source of everlasting wisdom.
Bible verses based on the American Standard Version.
Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out. Patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back. And so tomorrow tomorrow is going to be a unique day. It's the memorial of St. Barnabas. It's a required memorial, and our readings change as well. We're going to be over to the Acts of the Apostles, and so we're going to be looking at that. So we missed the next in the line, which of course you can read that if you want. It's very powerful reading, but the next in the line of today's reading. But yes, we'll be in the Acts of the Apostles tomorrow. And then Friday is the celebration of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And we're going to be reading from Deuteronomy. So, and anyway, we will see you tomorrow. Have yourself a blessed day.
Yeah. You know the real is back. Father Carr Chaplain from the city of champions, dropping daily reflections coming straight from the field. The raw truth revealed for the strong-willed. It's the Greatest Act of Defiance podcast with your host Father Carr, a message built to last. The Greatest Act of Defiance podcast. That's right, the Greatest Act of Defiance.
Word up.
Word up.
Word up.
The Catholic teaching in this podcast is reflected and presented as accurately as possible. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Archdiocese of Boston or any other institution.